And from such a beautiful young lady. And we are privileged to have you and your talents here at Titus 2. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I said we were going to have lots of treats today. And so the next treat we have is one of our beautiful Titus 2 women sharing her testimony with us. I have known Lori for years now, probably more years than we want to think about. Hey, Lori. Lori has been such a faithful giver in Titus 2. She did our videography for years. She started it, figured out how to do it, and did such a wonderful job in taping our previous years of Titus 2. But Lori has faced a real challenge this last year, and I have asked her to come and share her testimony with you. And I know you're going to be blessed. I know that you're going to learn some wonderful things, and I know you're going to feel the heart of Lori as she shares what the Lord has been doing in her life. Lori, my dear, come on up and share with us.
I know in Titus that we don't very often get to see each other's husbands, so I brought a picture of mine today. I can get to stay here. You have to put more to the left so it's not going to hit against that thing there. Okay. Please bear with me. It's been a while since I've done any public speaking, and it's a little emotional for me. I was married for 18 years on Valentine's Day, 2015, and my husband, Marty, passed away a little over 2 months later on April 24th. I met my husband at a little church we both were attending summer of 1994. And it was funny. It was a really small church, and so everybody got to know everybody. And we weren't interested in each other, farthest from our minds. But our pastor and his wife are always up to trying to match people off. And my pastor was real slick and went to Marty and said, Lori needs a friend. Why don't you, get together with her and, do some things, And he came to me, oh, Marty needs a friend, Why don't you get together and do some things? And so we started hanging out together, and we would go out to dinner, we would go to the movies. I would have him over and have old movie day, and I'd cook dinner and those kind of things. But it was we were just friends, and this went on for a couple of years. And during that time, the pastor would say, oh, we're having a Valentine's banquet. Marty, why don't you ask Lori, because I don't want her to feel left out. And so we would go to the Valentine banquets together. And then they started trying to push us together, both like, no way, So finally, I got mad at my pastor one day and told him to mind his own business. And he did. And lo and behold, in the summer of 1996, I was working with the youth group. We had a small junior high ministry, and I had decided I wanted to take them and do things that summer to try to, bond the friendships and that kind of thing, because, everybody needs their Christian friends, especially at that age. And so I went to Marty and said, I can't fit all the kids in my car. Would you mind helping me this summer to transport them? And he did, and somehow not only were we forging the friendship for the kids, we were forging our friendship too. And by the end of that summer, we had gone out one evening, and in our church, everybody always hugged everybody hello and goodbye. So We had gone out and had a really good time and a movie and dinner and everything that night. And so it was time to say goodbye at the door. And so he gives me the hug. And as I go to step back to say goodbye, he pulls me back to him and gives me this quick kiss, jumps back, runs like 10, 15 feet away. And then he turns around all sheepish and goes, "I had a really good time tonight." And I just melted. It was too cute. So that was kind of the beginning of us deciding we were dating after we'd been dating for 2 years. So then once, we decided we liked each other, all of a sudden 2 months later he's proposing. And of course he proposes and then I say, "Oh, well, when do you want to get married?" He's like, "When?" And so I said, "Look, you pick the month, I'll pick the day, it'll all be good." So of course he picks a year away because it sounds like a long time. And I picked first Saturday. He's like, "I knew you were going to do that." So anyway, about a month and a half later, he turned 40. We were an older couple. I was 34 when we got married, and he was 40. And he comes to me on his 40th birthday, all freaked out that he's 40, and I don't want to wait. Can't we just get married now? So I'm like, "Oh, geez, you're going to kind of mess up the plans. I wanted to put on the wedding, the whole thing." So we end up coming to this agreement that, if we're going to get married, without the wedding and everything, it's got to be a special day. So I picked Valentine's Day. And so we had quietly got married on Valentine's Day, and then we ended up having a wedding on our first anniversary so I could still have my wedding, which turned out to be a really good thing because for you folks who have been through a first year of marriage and the honeymoon ends early on, that second time of renewing your vows at 1 year is really good. Anyway, during that first year, my husband had lost his job. He had been a victim of a merger, and he was very wounded by that, and it really hurt his ego and everything. And he was working part-time for the school district, and so, things were a little strained, financially. It wasn't horrible, but I was planning a wedding, so of course there was financial concerns. And my mom wanted to help with the wedding, and so she was, buying things and sending them from Georgia, where she lives. But the problem is that my mom is the epitome of what you would say is a bitter woman. And she spent her time with me on the phone. We talk about the wedding plans, and then she would tell me what a jerk my husband was, what a loser. And she just started saying all these things that I was finding myself constantly having to defend him, and I was embarrassed. And the embarrassment over time turned into me becoming angry and disrespectful towards him because my mother kept pumping my head with all these negative things. And because of that, my attitude changed. And, at the beginning, I was really good about building my husband up and trying to help him, build his self-confidence, helped him towards fulfilling his goal of getting a full-time job and, all the things, but over time that started eroding. And, he was a sweet guy, and he just kind of took it. But you could see, I couldn't see, very well at the time, but I can see looking back how he kind of shrunk into himself because of the negativity. And 2 years into our marriage, he got diagnosed with diabetes, and he really wasn't good about following the doctor's directions and was in denial a lot. And so I was upset because I didn't want him to end up being a sick invalid man and me having to take care of him. And so I got more and more resentful as time went on. And then in 2004, he had a massive heart attack. And it was a 99% blockage in a major artery, and he survived. He only had a 50-50 chance of surviving, but he survived. And he did well for a while with following the doctor's directions, but after a while he got back to his bad habits, and I just became more and more angry. And he never knew that I was upset to that degree. But by 2005, I had gone back to Pennsylvania for a high school class reunion, and I was seriously contemplating just not returning because I was so frustrated that, he wasn't the person I wanted him to be. And a year later, my friend Debbie invited me to Titus. And I came, it was a mid-semester, And so I came for a while, and I can remember every week afterwards, I would just be furious. What? Are you kidding me? Oh, I can't believe this stuff. You know. And yet I would keep coming, you know, and it was deep down, I knew I was hearing the truth. I didn't want to hear it, but yet I did. And so I continued coming, but I got off easy because, you know, it was only about a half a semester I was there, and it was over, and it was like, phew, survived. But then the next fall came around, and she's like, hey, come on, why don't we go? So anyway, I continued going, and I started learning some really important, you know, concepts. And hang on a second. I discovered about my having very unrealistic expectations of my husband and about me not respecting him. And the unrealistic expectations, you know, a lot of it came from my mom, but I added to them as time went on because, you know, he should be the glorious, do everything guy. And, you know, so I looked at that fantasy version of my husband who was going to be that spiritual leader of our home and be the one to make sure we all were doing our Bible studies together and all that, and he wasn't that. And he was going to help me with the housework because I worked full-time outside the home too, and, you know, he should help me, and he really didn't do that. And I wanted him to be more actively involved with our son, and every time I tried him to get to do something with just he and my son, he wanted the whole family there for everything. And so it wasn't really what I wanted for that. And I wanted him to be a good provider, and he was supposed to always have this great job, and he had a good job, and I was grateful for that, but he wasn't grateful for that, so I was mad that he wasn't more grateful that he had that job. And I wanted him to always listen to me and go with my opinions, and he didn't always do that, so I wasn't very happy about that. So, you know, you have all these ideas about what this person should be. And I remember coming and Joanne saying, you know, write down 5 good things about your husband. And I would sit there, and I would look at that card and go, I couldn't think of one. You know, it was really kind of sad. And so I had to work at that. And after a while, I was able to write down 1 or 2 things. And slowly, as I learned more of the Titus lessons, you know, I started to see more things. And so now I'd kind of like to say some of the things that he did do, because I didn't always give him the accolades he should have gotten. And I definitely spent too much time on the phone with my mother and my sisters and some friends complaining about him and what he wasn't, and this is what he was. My husband had a great sense of humor. We would just be silly together and just sit there, do silly, stupid things and laugh at each other and have a grand time over nothing. We served together in children's ministry for 11 years, so that was his leadership to me in that sense. He worked at a job he hated for 15 years to provide for his family and to make sure that we had good benefits for health and vision and dental and all that. He did value my input in decision-making. A lot of times he would just, you know, try to give it all to me, and I learned to say, no, you know, I really want your input on this, because I had so berated him in our early marriage that he's just like, go ahead, make the decisions. And so, you know, I had to, you know, rebuild him and help him to be able to feel like, yes, he was the leader of the home. He was romantic a lot of the time, you know, and a lot of times just in, you know, simple ways. Now, he would never give me flowers. It was always a contention. I don't know why he did not want to buy me flowers. He bought me flowers before we got married, but not after. But he would buy the most romantic cards that you would just like, you know, I still have them all from the very beginning. I have every card he ever gave me, and they were always wonderful and, you know, reassuring to me about how he cared for me. He was very caring and sensitive to my feelings. He was an unusual guy that he could understand a woman's emotions and work with them, you know, and he could be that comforter when I'm crying. Instead of being angry because I'm crying, he would be the comforter because I was crying. Just a sensitive, wonderful guy that way. He always was telling me how beautiful I was, that he was feeling, you know, that I was the best thing that ever happened to him, you know, other than finding Christ, you know, that I was just such a blessing and that God was so good to him, giving me to him. As he got sicker as time went on, he thanked me almost every day for caring for him. And and just, taking care of all his needs because he had a lot of needs. He was always quick to forgive my faults. I wasn't so good, but, I could go on my hormonal tirades and whatnot, and he would just, give me a little time to, get over a little bit, and then come and just hold me, give me a big hug, and tell me he loved me and that everything was going to be okay. And that was my husband. He just always kind of fixed it. Not only would he forgive me, but he would apologize for our disagreements, even if it was my fault, just because he didn't want any animosity, between us. He didn't like that. He wanted us to always have that closeness. And I spent so much time in my marriage trying to fix him, and he so didn't need to be fixed. But it took me, a lot of years and a lot of Titus and a lot of talks with Joanne to really understand that he didn't need to be fixed. He was just who he was. So that takes me to some verses that were important to me in my learning. Ephesians 5:33b Amplified. Let the wife see that she respects and reverences her husband, that she notices him, regards him, honors him, prefers him, venerates him, esteems him, defers to him, praises him,